So we had a slew of interesting poll numbers come down this week. And to be honest with you, we had them all in the show, ready to go. And then there was a little FBI raid situation that we felt we needed to cover. So this got pushed out, but it still was important. So a couple pieces here. First of all, Nate Silver's 538 model, for the first time, has Dems significantly favored to keep control of the Senate, 60-40 shot. And, you know, he has different models. So in his most elaborate model, it's 60-40. In the quote-unquote classic model, which doesn't take into effect the, I think, like, analyst views, it's even more. It's 71-29. In the light model, which is just looks at polls, it's 77-23. But, you know, this is a significant shift over the course of the summer post-Dobbs. However, there are so many other numbers and indicators that go in the other direction that it really is a very difficult landscape to parse. So let's put this up on the screen. You have 60+% of Americans disapproving of Biden's handling of inflation, which is he's underwater 29-69. Immigration, 34-64. Economic recovery, 37-62. Crime, 38-61. Gas prices, 34-65. Taxes, 37-61. And gun violence, 35-64. But let's just focus in. I mean, inflation is obviously the most important one there. And for him to be underwater by such a significant margin, and we know how poor his approval ratings have been, normally you would look at those numbers and you'd say, it's a lock. Republicans are going to have a historic, massive wave. And yet, because you have these complicating factors of, number one, the Dobbs decision, Roe versus Wade being overturned, and number two, the fact that Republicans have gone out of their way to nominate not the greatest in the world candidates, you have a much more, Democrats have a much better shot than they would otherwise. The last thing I'll say is that, you know, some of these people who express displeasure, that's the word, with Biden are critiquing from the left. So they're not like considering voting for Republicans. They're unhappy with Biden, but that's part of why so many of the Democratic candidates are able to outperform where the president is.
Yeah, no, this is the thing. There's a lot of confounding variables. So on the one hand, Biden is tremendously unpopular. On the other hand, Biden is no longer becoming the defining issue of American politics, which he previously was before abortion and especially before the Trump FBI raid. So even though he's trailing massively on inflation, immigration, economic recovery, crime, gas, taxes, and guns, none of those currently, or at least inflation might be still number one, but if abortion has energized enough Democrats to come out and vote, it at the very least throws something in there. And then if you take Trump and you superimpose him on all of that, it just scrambles everything.
Yeah.
So the special election results tell us more than anything. Same with Kansas. It's how actual people are voting. And all of that does indicate that we're just living in a different world. So it's a weird time, honestly, because usually this is the one-to-one relationship. But, you know, whenever you have such hot button issues that kind of go above even the most kitchen table ones, it can change a lot on the down ballot race.
Well, because there's a difference between what people say is the most important to them and what really motivates them.
Yeah, to go out to vote.
It's hard to get at that in a poll, but what you see in the actual election results is that abortion has been highly motivating for the Democratic base, which frankly was very apathetic before. The Republican energy level has always been there, and that makes sense. They are upset that Biden's president. They're upset Democrats have control of the House and the Senate. They're motivated to come out and change that reality. Democratic base was kind of like, this Biden thing isn't all that I thought it was going to be. I'm not that happy. I feel that I feel that stress in terms of my household budget and prices going up. I'm worried about the economy. Abortion really gave them a galvanizing issue to get their voters to see that there is something very clear and tangible at stake in these elections. And then I agree with you, if Trump, especially if he goes ahead and announces for his next, his reelection campaign, that is another issue that Republicans really don't want they don't want Trump on the ballot in the midterms. They just wanted this to be focused on Biden. That strategy has already been somewhat confounded. And, you know, they also have done it to themselves. Like we talked early on about how they decided they were not going to put out an agenda. They were just going to basically sit back and be like, we're not them. That also leaves them a little more vulnerable because what ultimately are you voting for? You know, I mean, they can say inflation sucks, et cetera, but like they don't have a plan to deal with it. They want to push the Fed to do more and cut more spending and put, you know, and make things more painful. So the fact that they didn't really come up with an affirmative agenda also, I think, makes them a little more vulnerable right now.
I think you're absolutely right. And yeah, I think it's going to be a problem, especially with these confounding variables. But it's interesting nonetheless.
It is interesting. All right, guys, more for y'all later. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.